The iPad screen glowed softly in my lap, casting pale light across the dim room as I settled in to watch my show. Then it happened. A sudden flicker at the top of the screen, a notification sliding into view, an invitation to a shared album titled, Our Aiden's Growth Diary. My breath caught. I froze, my gaze drifting toward the closed door of the study, where Ethan Carter, my husband of 5 years, was still working. This was the man who'd refused even a goldfish because it was too much responsibility. How could he possibly have the patience, the tenderness, to document a child's life day after day? I took a slow, deliberate breath and tapped the notification. 365 photos greeted me, one for each day. A visual chronicle of a baby's journey from a newborn's fragile curl to those first wobbly steps. The location tag on the most recent photo struck like a physical blow. It was taken in the apartment complex directly across from ours. I closed the album and studied Ethan's silhouette through the cracked study door. Lately, he'd been buried in work, insisting his project demanded silence and focus. My voice, when I finally spoke, was deceptively light. Finding extra inspiration for your designs these days? He didn't look up, his tone soft, almost absent. Yeah, the draft's nearly done. A pause. Oh, tomorrow could you pick up some baby food? Think of it as a welcome gift for the neighbor's kid. My smile felt brittle. Okay. But the name, Aiden, echoed in my mind, each repetition a blade twisting deeper. The next day, I drove to the most exclusive supermarket in town. I chose the most extravagantly priced baby food on the shelf, something organic, imported, wrapped in minimalist packaging that screamed wealth. At the register, when the total flashed, a number that could have fed a family for a week, a cold, sharp laugh escaped me. Ethan Carter, you really do know how to spend when it matters. We've been married for 5 years, and every time I casually suggested getting a cat, you refused, saying it was as troublesome as raising a child. Turns out it wasn't the trouble you minded, it was that the child wasn't the one you wanted. When I got home, Ethan had already left for work. On the dining table was a sandwich he had made for me with a sticky note beside it. Emily, did you buy the baby food? Thank you, tonight I'll cook you a big dinner. He was as tender as always. I grabbed the note, crumpled it into a ball and tossed it into the trash. Staring out the window at the identical apartment building across from ours, I picked up the bag of expensive baby food and walked out. The photo's location had been clear, Building 16, Apartment 801. My heart pounded as I stood outside the door. I took several deep breaths, adjusted my expression and pressed the doorbell. The door opened quickly. Avery, in her early 20s, stood there, fresh-faced and wearing a white dress. When she saw me, a flicker of weariness crossed her eyes. Hello. Who are you looking for? I put on my warmest smile and lifted the bag in my hand. Hi. I live across the street. I'm your neighbor. My husband said you just moved in and have a baby, so I brought a little welcome gift. Her expression softened, and a shy smile spread across her face. That's so kind of you. Please come in. The moment I stepped inside, a faint scent of milk drifted toward me. Living room floor was covered with a soft play mat, and a baby about a year old sat there chewing on his little toes. He was fair and chubby with big, round eyes, adorably cute. The young woman took the bag from me, looking a bit embarrassed. You really didn't have to. I'm Lily Ross, and this is my son Aiden. Aiden? The name was identical to the album's title. I crouched down and teased the child. Aiden is such a lovely name. Lily poured me a glass of water and sat across from Maze. His father picked it, not, he said. He hopes Aiden will live a safe and smooth life. As she mentioned his father, her face lit up with unmistakable happiness and sweetness. My nails dug deep into my palm. So what does your husband do for work? I asked lightly. You're so young and your child is already this big. Such happiness. I thought bitterly as I asked in a casual tone, is he busy with work? Always working late, hardly ever home. Lily Ross's eyes flickered, avoiding mine. I understood instantly. This apartment carried no trace of a third person's presence. Only Lily and her son. Ethan Carter must only come here occasionally. He didn't live here permanently. I was wondering how to dig out more information when from the corner of my eye, I noticed a coat hanging on the entryway rack. It was a man's trench coat, the exact same style and color as the one I had ironed for Ethan that very morning. My heart plummeted to the bottom. Lily followed my gaze, her cheeks flushing slightly. That belongs to Aiden's father. He left in a hurry and forgot it here. I forced a smile and said nothing. Just then my phone buzzed. It was my best friend, Claire Jong. I excused myself, saying I needed the restroom, then locked the door behind me and answered in a hushed voice. Emily, what's wrong? You don't sound right, Claire asked immediately. The moment I opened my mouth, my voice trembled with tears. Claire, I think I'm being cheated. Oni quickly explained everything that had happened on the other end. Claire exploded. Oh my God, Ethan Carter, that bastard, didn't he say he wanted to stay child-free 5 years and he wouldn't even let you keep a cat? And now he's shitting a mistress with a baby that's already a year old? Emily, don't panic, stay calm and don't alert him. I'll dig up everything I can on this Lily Ross for you right away after the call. I splashed water on my face trying to steady myself. When I stepped out of the bathroom, Lily was gently rocking Aiden in her arms, humming a soft tune. The picture was so tender it pierced my eyes, making my tears almost fall. But I couldn't let myself collapse. I couldn't just give in. 5 years of marriage, half of everything in this house belonged to me. Ethan couldn't just throw me away, settle down with his mistress and enjoy family bliss with their child. No way. Leaving Lily's apartment, I felt as if every ounce of strength had been drained from my body. Back home, I collapsed on the couch, my mind a whirlwind. Ethan's tenderness, his insistence on staying child-free all our years together, everything now looked like a carefully crafted lie. At 10 that night, Ethan came home. He carried cake from my favorite bakery, his face glowing with affection. Emily, I'm back. Did you miss me? He stepped forward to hug me. Instinctively, I turned my body away. His smile froze for a second, then quickly softened again. What's wrong? Not happy today. I looked at him and suddenly felt like I was staring at a stranger. No, just a little tired. Then rest early, he said warmly, placing the cake on the table. Come on, try it. It's your favorite cheesecake. I stared at the delicate slice and nausea surged through me. Ethan Carter, I said, my voice calm in a way that even scared me. We've been married for 5 years. Have you ever truly loved me? He froze, clearly not expecting such a question. He moved closer, crouched down and held my hand. Emily, what's wrong? We're husband and wife. Of course I love you. His hand was warm, but all I felt was cold. Is that so? I pulled my hand free. I went to the building across the street today. Ethan's pupils contracted sharply, the color draining from his face, but he quickly steadied himself. What for? He asked, forcing Kong to deliver the so-called welcome gift for that neighbor's child you mentioned. I spoke each word clearly. That child's name is Aiden. The air felt frozen. Ethan Carter's lips moved, but not a single word came out. His expression shifted from shock to panic, then finally collapsed into a kind of despair I couldn't recognize. After a long silence, he rasped, Emily, you know everything's. I know it all. I looked at him with a cold smile. Or Aiden's growth diary. Ethan, how thoughtful of you. He shut his eyes, his face twisted with pain. Emily, I'm sorry. I never meant to hide it from you. Never meant to. A laugh burst out of me, sharp and bitter. You bought another apartment, kept a woman, fathered a child, and you're telling me you didn't mean to? It's not what you think, he said quickly, desperation creeping into his voice. Lily and I were truly in love. I wanted to confess long ago, but I was afraid you wouldn't accept it. Truly in love, I sneered. So your plan was to keep lying forever, letting me play the fool while I unknowingly helped you take care of your mistress and illegitimate child. My voice grew louder, my emotion slipping completely out of control. Ethan Carter, what do you take me for? He staggered back under my words. Emily, calm down. We can talk this through. Talk about what? He stood towering over him. About how you'll leave this marriage with nothing. Just then my phone rang. It was Claire Jang. I answered and put her on speaker. Emily, I found out about this Lily Ross. She was Ethan's high school classmate, his first love, his so-called white moonlight after college. She dumped him for some rich kid last year. That guy abandoned her, and with nowhere else to go, she crawled back to Ethan. Your so-called husband became her backup plan. Claire's voice echoed clearly through the living room. Ethan's face twisted into something beyond miserable, like he had been stripped bare, every bit of his shame and filth laid out in the open. I looked at him coldly. Ethan Carter, what's left to talk about now? Panic over. He lunged toward me, reaching for my phone. Emily, listen to me. It's not like that, please. I stepped back, avoiding his hand. Explain. What more is there to explain? That you couldn't let go of your precious first love, so you were willing to play the fool for her. That's not true, he roared. Aiden is my child, my own son, my flesh and blood. His eyes were bloodshot, his emotions spiraling. When Lily left back then, she had her reasons. Now she's back and she gave me a son. I can't abandon them. I stared at his pitifully devoted expression, and all I felt was disgust. So for your so-called first love, for your illegitimate child, you sacrificed me. You sacrificed our 5-year marriage. Every word I spoke was like broken glass, jagged and deliberate. Ethan's lips trembled, but he couldn't speak. He knew any excuse would crumble against the truth. I pulled out the divorce papers I had already prepared and slammed them in front of him. Sign it. The house, the car, the savings, the shares under your name. I want it all. You'll walk away with nothing. Ethan's body swayed as he stared at the words, walk away with nothing. Emily, you can't do this to me, he begged. 5 years together. Doesn't that mean anything to you, love? I let out a hollow laugh. You're talking to me about love when you were whispering sweet words to another woman, when you were fathering her child. Why didn't you talk to me about love then? I pushed the papers closer to him. You have one day to decide. If by this time tomorrow you haven't signed, Then I'll see you in court. When that happens, the evidence of your affair and your transfer of assets during our marriage will be handed to the judge. Ethan Carter, you're a smart man, you should know which choice to make. I didn't look at him again. I turned and walked into the bedroom, slamming the door shut behind me. Leaning against it, my body slid down to the floor, and at last, the tears broke through. The next morning when I woke, Ethan was gone. The divorce paper still lay quietly on the coffee table in the living room, his signature lying blank. I knew he wouldn't surrender so easily. When we married, he had nothing. It was my parents who believed in him, who gave him money to start his company. In these 5 years, the business had flourished. He had become the rising star in everyone's eyes. President Carter. Most of the company's shares were under his name. If I filed for divorce with proof of his affair, I could indeed claim most of the assets, but he would no doubt try every way to stall and siphon off what he could. I couldn't give him that chance. I called Claire. John, Claire, I need your help. Emily, you know, I'd walk through fire for you. Just say the word. Find me a reliable private investigator. I want every detail of Ethan's company's accounts, and everything you can dig up on Lily Rossi. Want all of his dirt. No problem, it's as good as done, she agreed, without hesitation. Emily, what are you planning to do? I stared out the window, my eyes growing colder with each second. He wants to protect his company, protect his precious first love. Then I'll make sure he watches with his ownies as everything he cares about is destroyed. Following days at home were eerily quiet. Ethan didn't return. He had probably moved in with his first love. Good, at least I didn't have to see him. I kept to my routine, going to work, coming home, exercising, reading as if Ethan Carter had never existed in my life. Only I knew the storm I was brewing inside. A week later, the private investigator handed me the first batch of files. My hands went cold as I flipped through them. Ethan had gone further than I imagined. He hadn't just bought Lily a house and a car, he gave her a huge allowance every month. Worse, he'd abused his position to embezzle company funds, setting up a shell company outside and funneling large portions of business there, and the legal representative of that shell company was none other than Lily Ross. He was hollowing out the company that we had built together, all to pour into the bottomless pit of his mistress. Good. Very good, Ethan Carter, I whispered. You left me no way out. Don't blame me for being ruthless. I arranged to meet Ethan's parents. My in-laws had always liked me, treated me as their own daughter. They'd long regretted Ethan's insistence on staying child-free, always hoping for a grandchild. If they found out that the grandson they'd been yearning for already existed, and that their beloved son was casting me aside for a mistress, I wondered what their faces would look like. We met at a quiet tea house. When they saw me, both of them smiled so widely their eyes nearly disappeared. Emily, you've lost weight lately. Has that boy Ethan been bullying you again? My mother-in-law asked, gripping my hand with concern. I smiled faintly and shook my head. No, Mom, Dad, there's something I need to tell you. I poured them tea, then gently slid the stack of photos and documents across the table. What's this? My father-in-law asked, frowning as he picked up a photo. It was Ethan holding Aiden in his arms, walking in the park with Lily beside him. A picture of a happy family of 3. My mother-in-law picked up another document. The purchase contract for an apartment the owner listed was Ethan Carter with the emergency contact named as Lily Rosas. They looked through more of the photos and documents. The smiles on their faces gradually disappeared, replaced by shock, fury, and How could this be? My mother-in-law's voice trembled. Emily, who is this woman? Who is this child's mother? This woman's name is Lily Ross, I said calmly, though my words exploded in the small tea house like a bomb. She was Ethan's high school first love. This child's name is Aiden. He's your biological grandson, already over a year old. What? My father-in-law slammed the table and shot to his feet, his face flushed with rage, pointing at Ethan's photo. He roared, this unfilial son, this disgrace. My mother-in-law couldn't even speak. She clutched her chest, tears falling in heavy drops. How could he do this to you, Emily? I passed her tissues and gently patted her back. Mom, Dad, please don't get too upset. Take care of your health. How can we not be upset? My father-in-law snapped, pacing furiously around the room. How could the Carter family produce such a son? Emily, don't worry, we will stand by you in this. He pulled out his phone and immediately dialed Ethan. The moment the line connected, he exploded. You little bastard, get over here right now. Then he hung up with a slam, his chest heaving in fury. Half an hour later, Ethan arrived. The moment he stepped through the door and saw his parents' ashen faces and the pile of evidence on the table, he knew the truth was out. His own face went pale and he stood frozen, not daring to move. Dad, Mom, don't call me Mom, my mother-in-law cried. I have no son like you, Neil, my father-in-law thundered. Pointing at him, Ethan's legs buckled and he collapsed to the floor with a thud. Dad, I was wrong. You're more than wrong. My father-in-law grabbed a stack of documents from the table and hurled them at his head. For that woman outside. You betrayed Emily, you committed all these deeds. And you even embezzled company funds. Do you want to end up in prison? Ethan, battered and humiliated, didn't dare talk back. I watched it all coldly. This was only the beginning. Ethan Carter, I'll ask you one last time. My father-in-law's voice was like ice. Will you cut ties with that woman? Or not? Ethan lifted his head, glanced at his enraged father, then at his mother, who was weeping uncontrollably. Finally his eyes fell on me, filled with struggle and torment. After a long silence, he shut his eyes as though making a final decision and spoke hoarsely. Dad, I'm sorry. I can't leave Lily, and I can't leave Aiden. My father-in-law nearly choked on his own rage, while my mother-in-law fainted right there in tears. The scene dissolved into chaos. I looked at Ethan kneeling on the ground, clinging stubbornly to his so-called love, even if it killed him, and in that moment, the very last shred of feeling I had left for him shattered completely. I helped lift my fainted mother-in-law and turned to my father-in-law. Dad, let's take Mom to the hospital first. He looked at me, guilt and sorrow written all over his face. Emily, the Carter family owes you too much. I shook my head silently. In their hearts, the balance had already tipped entirely to my side. And that was exactly what I wanted. After settling my in-laws in the hospital, it was already late at night. I drove home alone as my car crossed the bridge over the river. The neon lights of the city streaked past my eyes. I rolled down the window, and the icy night wind rushed in, stinging my cheeks with its biting cold. But that sting was nothing compared to even a fraction of the pain in my heart. When I returned to the empty house, I didn't turn on the lights. I sat in the dark for a long time, until my phone screen lit up. It was a message from Ethan. Carter, Emily, I know you hate me right now, but I truly love Lily. Aiden is my flesh and blood. I can't abandon them. We've been husband and wife for so many years. Even if we can't remain a couple, we'll always be family. Can't you show some mercy? The company is my life's work. If you take it away, it's the same as killing me. If you are willing to withdraw the lawsuit and compromise on the division of assets, I can compensate you whatever you want. I'll give it. I looked at those hypocritical words and laughed out loud. At this point, he was still trying to bargain with me. Did he really think I cared about his so-called compensation? What I wanted was his utter ruin. I didn't reply. Instead, I called Claire. Jane, Claire, any updates from the investigator? There's big news, she said, her voice practically buzzing with excitement. Guess what? Lily Ross is no saint. She never really cut ties with that rich guy. She left Ethan for back then. We've been in contact all along, and the investigator found that during her pregnancy, she went to the hospital several times, not a proper maternity ward, but a shady private clinic. My heart skipped a beat. Can you find out which clinic and what tests she did? Yes, I'll text you the address, but Emily, promise me you can't go there alone. It's too dangerous. I understand. I hung up and stared at the address. Claire sent a bold suspicion rose in me. If it was true, then Ethan's so-called great love would turn into the biggest joke of his life. The next day followed the address to the hidden clinic tucked deep inside an old neighborhood. It looked completely ordinary, unremarkable. I spent a hefty sum to buy Lily's medical records from a greedy nurse. When I saw the black and white words on that paper, my blood turned to ice. It was a paternity test. The results showed that Aiden's biological father was someone else, definitely not Ethan Carter. Clutching the report, I stood at the clinic's entrance facing the glaring sunlight, laughing until tears ran down my face. Ethan Carter, you colossal, you threw away your wife, alienated everyone around you, all for another man's child. I can't wait to see the look on your face when the truth hits you. But I didn't plan to slap the report in his face right away. The game of cat and mouse was much more fun. When played slowly, I carefully put the report away and dialed my father-in-law. Dad, I agreed to a settlement on the other end. He paused. Emily, but I have one condition. I cut him off. I want Ethan together with Lily Ross and that Chilto kneel before me and apologize, and I want him to transfer ownership of that shell company under his name to me free of charge. Silent, stretched on the line. Finally he said, all right, I'll make him agree. I'll talk to that unfilial son myself. I knew he would. In his eyes, this was the best outcome Ethan could ever hope for. Sacrificing a worthless shell company to keep the main business intact was a deal he'd gladly make. They all thought I had given in, that I had admitted defeat. They didn't know the trap I had set was only beginning to tighten. On the appointed day, I chose the restaurant where Ethan and he had once celebrated our wedding anniversary. I even reserved the same table we had sat at back then. By the time I arrived, Ethan was already there with Lily Ross and the boy they called Aiden. My in-laws had also come, likely worried that the situation would spiral out of control, and had come to keep the peace. Lily Ross was dressed head to toe in designer brands, her makeup flawless, and she carried the child in her arms. with the air off a victor when her eyes met mine. I caught the flicker of pride and disdain she couldn't quite hide. Ethan Carter's face, however, was grim. He didn't dare look at me or at his parents. My father-in-law cleared his throat and spoke first. Emily, everyone's here, let's settle everything today once and for. Allie nodded, fixing my gaze on Ethan. Go ahead, Ethan, start. His body stiffened. My father-in-law saw him, a hard glare, and Ethan drew in a deep breath before pulling Lily with him to stand before me. Then, under the stunned stares of everyone in the restaurant, he dragged Lily down to her knees. Emily, I'm sorry. His voice was small, laced with humiliation and reluctance. Lily's face filled with disbelief, and she struggled to stand, but Ethan held her down firmly. An apology should be sincere, I said coolly, lifting the teacup in front of me and taking a slow sip. Bow your heads, how else am I supposed to believe you mean it? Ethan's face flushed crimson. He shut his eyes, clenched his jaw, and dragged Lily down with him, knocking their foreheads against the floor 3 times in loud, resounding thuds. The gasps around us were audible and phones were raised. Pictures, videos, all capturing Ethan Carter kneeling and groveling before his wife. For the sake of his mistress. Enough, get up, I said flatly, setting the teacup down. Did you bring the share transfer agreement? Ethan pulled a folder from his bag and handed it to me. I went through it carefully, and once I confirmed everything was in order, I signed my name. From that moment on, the vault Ethan had so carefully built for his precious first love now belonged to me. Emily Shun. Ethan and Lily probably thought it was over then, but they were far too naive. I slipped the signed agreement into my bag, then pulled out another document and laid it on the table, sliding it toward Ethan. Take a look, Mr. Carter. Consider this a gift from me to you and your, oh no, not your family of 3. My mistake. Ethan picked it up with a frown, but as his eyes scanned the contents, his hands began to shake violently. The color drained from his face until he was as pale as paper. No, impossible, he muttered, his voice broken, his mind unraveling. This can't be real, it's fake. You forged it. Lily leaned over for a glance, then let out a piercing scream. Where did you get this? Her reaction was answer enough. My in-laws, sensing something terribly wrong, grabbed the document. It was a paternity test results, not the biological father. My mother-in-law's eyes rolled back and she fainted on the spot again. This time my father-in-law didn't rush to catch her. He only fixed Ethan with a murderous glare. Ethan Carter, he growled, spitting each word like venom. What is the meaning of this? Ethan was stunned, frozen like an idiot. Clutching the report, he stumbled toward Lily and grabbed her shoulders, shaking her hard. Tell me, is this true? Whose child is Aiden? His eyes were wild, his voice breaking with hysteria. Terrified, Lily sobbed and screamed, I don't know, let me go. You don't know. Ethan's eyes burned red as he raised his hand and slapped her across the face with a sharp crack. You be asterisk. You dare lie to meth. Restaurant dissolved into chaos. Diners rushed to record, some to intervene, but I remained seated, watching coldly as the man who had once sworn to love unraveled in public, tearing apart the very woman he'd claimed as his true love. So this is your so-called white moonlight. Ethan, this is the great love you abandoned your wife to protect. How does it feel, Ethan Carter, to wear another man's crown of shame? To raise another man's son as your own must be quite the thrill. The police arrived quickly and the chaos at the restaurant ended with both Ethan and Lily Ross being taken away for investigation. My father-in-law rushed my fainted mother-in-law back to the hospital before leaving. He cast me a look so complicated it was hard to untangle. Guilt, regret, and more than anything, a kind of respect tinged with awe. Perhaps it was the first time he had ever witnessed the true extent of my resolve. I paid the bill and walked slowly out of the restaurant. Night had already fallen and the city was glittering with lights. Taking a deep breath, I felt a lightness I had never known before. This months-long war had finally ended, and I was the sole victor. Ethan was sentenced to 3 years in prison for intentional assault and falsifying corporate documents. His main company, already hollowed out and stripped of its core business, soon declared bankruptcy overnight. My father-in-law's hair turned completely. Wateto covered the companies. He sold off every property the family owned. The Carter family was ruined. As for Lily Ross, she didn't fare any better. Aiden's biological father, the wealthy heir she once clung to, refused to acknowledge the child, let alone provide a cent of support. She lost Ethan as her meal ticket, and with her name dragged through scandal, she was disgraced. Word was she eventually returned to her rural hometown with the child living in misery. Meanwhile, I used the shell company I had taken from Ethan, merged resources, and founded my own firm with my parents' connections and funding, combined with my own relentless effort. The company quickly flourished. A year later, my company went public. On the day I struck the gong, I stood in the spotlight in a tailored suit, Accepting everyone's congratulations, Claire John hugged me, eyes sparkling with excitement. Emily, you're incredibly a billionaire now. I smiled lightly. Money doesn't matter. What matters is that I took back everything that belonged to me and made those who hurt me pay the price they deserved. In the second year after my divorce, I met an interesting man at a business gala. His name was Daniel Chang, a well-known architect. We connected instantly, talking about everything from art to philosophy, from travel to food. The way he looked at me was full of admiration and respect, something I had never once seen in Ethan's eyes. Daniel and I began dating. He would take me to obscure concerts, spend whole days with me at art museums, and quietly bring me warm late-night meals. When I worked overtime with him, I felt like the carefree girl I once had been. I thought I could stay this happy forever until the day I received a phone call from prison. It was Ethan. His voice was hoarse, pleading. Emily, I was wrong. I truly know I was wrong. Can you come see me just once? For the sake of all the years we were husband and wife. I stayed silent for a long time. Finally I said, all right. I went, not out of softness, but because I wanted to see what had become of the man who had once destroyed half my life. In the visitation room, I saw Ethan. He wore the prison uniform, his hair shaved short, his whole body gaunt and withered. But when he saw me, a spark lit in his cloudy eyes. Emily, you came. Tears rolled down his cheeks. I'm sorry, Emily, I'm so sorry. Over and over he repeated those words. I regret it. I truly regret everything. If I could turn back time, I would never have treated you that way. I should never have been blinded by that. Lily Ross, I should never have hurt you. I should never have destroyed our home. I listened quietly, my face void of expression. Are you finished? He froze, startled. If you're done, then I should leave. I stood up and prepared to walk away. Emily, he cried desperately, slapping the glass. Don't go. Listen to me. I love you. I've always loved you. Lily Ross was just a mistake, a moment of weakness. When I get out, let's remarry, okay? We can start over. I stopped, turned to look at him, and then I smiled. Ethan Carter, do you know what's most pathetic about you? Not your stupidity, but the fact that even now you still can't see reality. You never loved me and you never truly loved Lily either. The only person you've ever loved is yourself. Your so-called moment of weakness destroyed 5 years of my youth and my trust. What we had ended the moment you chose to deceive me for remarriage. I lifted my left hand. On my ring finger gleamed the diamond ring Daniel Chang had given me, sparkling under the light. Sorry, I'm getting married. Ethan followed my hand with his eyes and his whole body stiffened. The blood drained from his face until nothing was left but ashes of despair. I looked at his broken figure, but I felt nothing. Without another glance, I turned and walked away. When I stepped out of the prison gates, the sunlight was warm and bright. Daniel's car was waiting not far away. The moment he saw me, he got out and pulled me into a big Ember seats. All over now, I leaned into his chest and nodded. It's all over. Yes, it was over. All those disgraceful years, all that pain locked forever behind those iron bars. With one final turn of my back, what awaited me now was a new life full of light and hope. Daniel and I held our wedding in a small seaside chapel. We didn't invite many people, only our closest family and friends dressed in a white wedding gown. I walked arm in arm with my father down the aisle toward the man waiting at the altar. His eyes shimmered with unshed tears, but his smile was so tender it could melt the whole world. When we exchanged rings, he held my hand firmly and made his solemn vow. Emily Shun, I love you. From this day forward I can't share in your past, but I will be with you every step of your future. My tears spilled instantly, tears of happiness. This time married life was simple and warm. Daniel spoiled me like a princess. He remembered everything I liked, prepared little surprises, supported every decision I made. Most importantly, he gave me the security and respect he had always longed for. We traveled together, cooked together, curled up on the sofa watching old movies like any ordinary couple. We shared the joys and sorrows of everyday life. 2 years later, our daughter was born. We named her Anran, wishing her a life of peace, joy, and ease. Her arrival filled our home with even more laughter. Daniel became a doting father, rushing home from work each day just to scoop her up and shower her with kisses. Watching them laugh and play together, I often thought perhaps this is what happiness truly is. A loving husband, a sweet daughter, a thriving career, friends who truly. Everything I once lost had returned to me in a more beautiful way, doubled in blessing. Sometimes I still thought of Ethan Carter. I heard that after his release, he couldn't find steady work and survived on odd jobs, living in misery. His parents, unable to bear the repeated blows, fell ill, one after another, their twilight years bleak and desolate. For all of this, my heart had long grown still. Everyone must pay the price for their own choices. One weekend afternoon, I sat in the yard with little Anran, basking in the sun. Daniel walked out of the house holding a photo album in his hand. Emily, look what I found. I took it from him. It was our wedding album together, We flipped through the pages, recalling the details of that day and everything we had felt curious, and Ren toddled over, pointing her tiny finger at the bride in the photo. Mommy, so pretty. I laughed and kissed her chubby cheek from behind. Daniel wrapped his arms around me, resting his chin on my shoulder. That's right, Mommy is the most beautiful woman in the world. The warm sunlight spilled over us as I leaned into Daniel's embrace, my eyes following our daughter as she wobbled across the grass, taking her unsteady steps. A deep sense of peace filled me in that moment. I finally understood true happiness doesn't come from revenge against the past, but from embracing the future. Only by letting go of hatred, by freeing yourself, can you discover the better scenery ahead. And I was fortunate. In the darkest time of my life, I had chosen to walk forward bravely. In the end, I stepped out of the shadows and welcomed the vast, clear skies that belonged to me.